Hi everyone, it's Steph here if you don't already know, and on this channel I just talk about all things careers and all things lifestyle. And in today's video I'm going to be giving you the 5 things that I personally wish that I knew before I started my training contract. Now, it's literally been nearly a year since I started training, which I think is absolutely crazy, and to be honest I think that definitely deserves another video of me telling you about how my year's been, what I've learned, all that kind of stuff, but we'll save that for another time. For today, please do make sure that if you like this kind of content that you like, comment and subscribe, and you give me a follow on my Instagram as well, because I post more tips and lifestyle stuff there. Let's get straight into the video. Okay, so what's the first thing that I personally wish I knew before starting my TC? In all honesty, I think I wish I knew the importance of speaking to people in the industry about their practice area before you go in. Why do I say this? There's a couple of reasons. Different firms will do it differently, but before you join, you're either going to have to pick all of your seats for the duration of your training contract, or at the very least, you're going to have to pick your first seat. If you haven't taken the time to actually have an in-depth understanding as to what different practice areas are like, you could really basically shoot yourself in the foot, because you could end up picking stuff that doesn't suit your skill set or doesn't match up to what you actually thought it would be. For me personally, I actually have an example of this. So when I was in my application stages, and even when I was like applying to different firms, like not even just the firm that I ended up at, I always had it in my head that I wanted to do emerging markets work. Like that's kind of where I saw myself in terms of my future as a lawyer. And I also wanted to do finance work. And this was just from like deals that I saw online and stuff like that. I just thought, oh, okay, this looks interesting. Somewhere along the line, I don't know how this happened, I don't know who started this little like rumor in my head, but somewhere along the line I was told that project finance was where I would need to be if I wanted to do emerging markets work, and specifically if I wanted to do Africa work. I'm here to tell you, first of all, I mean, again, I think it may be different for different firms, to be honest, I don't know. But in terms of my firm anyway, that's actually not true at all. You don't have to be in project finance to do emerging markets work. You don't have to be in project finance to do Africa work. Those of you who have been following my journey, you'll know that my first seat was in debt finance. My second seat is currently in capital markets. It's a split seat, so I do a bit of debt capital markets and I do a bit of structured finance. Now, whilst my structured finance isn't really that emerging markets focused, my structured finance work is 100% ESG focused, which I absolutely love. And again, if you follow me, you know I love ESG work. My debt capital markets work and my debt finance work, because of the supervisors that I sat with, they were purely emerging markets focused. So I got to do all of the emerging markets work that I wanted to do and that I thought was only available in project finance. Another thing that I've realized just by virtue of A, working in those teams, and then B, speaking to people that were in project finance, in terms of the length of deals, I think I'm someone who kind of likes medium-ish, and I say medium because I guess it's relative, but medium-ish length transactional deals. And what do I mean by this? When I was in debt finance, the shortest deal that I ever did, so a competitive bid, that was 7 days. That was grueling, but it was 7 days. The longest deal that I ever did, I think, was like a month and a half, maybe 2 months max, just in terms of when I got involved. I think the associates and their partners were involved before I was, in all fairness. So the deal might have been a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, but in terms of when I got involved, those are the time frames that I did in debt finance. Here in capital markets, I think the shortest deal I've ever done, it's probably been a month. I don't think anything has been shorter than that. Yeah, the shortest deal I've done is a month. And the longest one I've done, well, to be fair, the longest one I've done was started before I even joined the team. So I'm going to say it's probably been going on for about 6, maybe 7 months, to be fair. But I've been on it for about 4 months, right? So that's the longest deal I've ever done. And from what I've heard just from speaking to other people, project finance deals can generally take years. And I guess that makes sense practically, because if you think about what they're tied to projects, right? So we're talking about things like building airports, constructing roads, all that sorts of stuff. Like, this is not something that you do in a day, regardless of whether you're in a developed country or in an emerging country, right? So yeah, like I would just say, make sure that you're actually speaking to people before you join, because it's not something that I did enough, I don't think. There were a couple of people I spoke to. So I had a friend who started their TC literally the intake before me, so 6 months before me. So I did speak to him. And there were a couple of other people who I'd met like from law school and stuff like that. So they started like either 6 months to a year before I started. So again, I spoke to them a little bit, but I don't think I was proactive enough in like reaching out to associates in the different deal teams that I thought I was interested in, and kind of being like, look, I'm interested in this area. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about it? And I think if I had done that, that would have made my first seat choice a lot more informed. Having said all of that, I don't regret doing debt finance first. I think that was the perfect first seat choice for me. But I just think I could have been a bit more intentional about making that decision. What is the second most important thing I wish I knew before starting my TC? To be honest, I don't think I would ever have known this, because literally no one would ever have told me. But one piece of advice that one of the partners I'm working with now gave to me, which I'm going to share with you because I think it's actually honestly fundamental to everything I do in my day-to-day as a trainee, is that the 2 skills you need to be able to master to actually be good at being a trainee is knowing how to control F and knowing how to prioritize. And what do I mean by this? Control F, literally every task you're given is going to require you to look at some form of document, right? And obviously I'm looking very specifically at transactional seats at the moment because I've not done a contentious seat. So in transactional seats, if I'm ever asked to review something, if I'm ever asked to draft something, I'm generally always going to be going from a precedent if I'm drafting. And if I'm reviewing, obviously the doc's going to be in front of me. Control F is your friend. You really shouldn't be reading like a 300, a 500 page document from start to finish. That's not the most efficient way or the most effective way to do things. You need to know what it is that you need to be looking for, and Control F is going to be your best friend in that. The second thing there with the key skills that you need to have is prioritization. When I first started my training contract, I found that I was doing a lot of like late nights, not necessarily because there was that much work to do, not even because the work was that hard, but it was because I was very inefficient. Obviously, I'd only just joined the firm, so there was a lot of me kind of learning how to navigate working life, as well as me learning how to actually do the tasks, right? But I'll give you examples. Like, there would be times where an associate would send me something at, I don't know, maybe 6 p.m. because that's just the time of day that it's gotten to their desk. They haven't given me a deadline for it because, in all honesty, they've just like maybe forgotten to give me a deadline or whatever. I've then now panicked and thought, oh my God, I need to do it this evening. Stayed up till midnight to finish it. The associate didn't actually need it for like another 2 days. So little things like that, like I do think with time you start to pick it up, to be honest. But if I can help you, if you're going into your first seat or something like that, the best thing I would say there is just make sure that if you're given a piece of work and you're not given a time frame, ask for a time frame. 9 times out of 10, if you're not given a time frame, that probably means it's not urgent, because I promise you, like if the associate or the partner needed that work immediately, you would know because they would be on your back for it. But if someone just sends you something to do for your own peace of mind and so that you can then kind of plan your time accordingly, just ask, when do you need this back by? They will give you a time frame and then you can plan accordingly, and then you don't always need to be staying up late when it's not necessary to do so. Do you get what I mean? So what's the third thing that I wish I knew before I started my TC? To be honest, I think I wish I knew, well, I kind of know it now, but I wish I had recognized the importance of networking horizontally as well as vertically. I think when you're introduced to the idea of networking, like for me anyway, it was in university, so in my undergrad, that I was introduced to the concept of networking and going out to meet people for a professional reason. And I think for me there, my focus was always networking vertically, so like trying to connect with, you know, business owners, with partners, with associates, all that sorts of stuff. But it's actually very, very important as well to connect horizontally. It goes back to some advice that a partner gave me when I had like a little coffee catch up with them. All the people that are around you that you keep in your network whilst you're on the same level, as you grow and grow and grow, and you know, become an associate, you become a senior associate, you become counsel, you become partner, like whatever it is that you decide to do in your career, those people are also going to grow alongside you in their respective careers, right? So if you've got friends who are consultants, you've got friends who work in tech, you've got friends who are engineers, you've got friends who own their own businesses, like whatever it is that your friends do, they're also going to be growing whilst you're also growing. When it comes time for you to become partner or make that move in-house or start that new business or do this, do that, you've already got your network that you can lean on. You've already got people that you can potentially call clients. You've already got business that you can bring in. And it's all because you were networking horizontally along the way. Do you get what I mean? So I think that's something that I'm seeing a lot more. It is very important. And when I even see things like people becoming partner, and I sit down and I ask them, like, what was your journey like? Like, when did it start for you? How do you bring in business? All that sorts of stuff. They all say the same thing. Like, a lot of these people who they bring in as clients are people who they now basically consider as friends because they've been networking with them along their journey, as opposed to just trying to randomly, like, vertically network with people at some kind of superficial event. So the fourth thing that I wish I knew before I started my TC, and again, it's something that I think for the past 2-3 months, I've been doing a lot more now, which is good, but I kind of wish I knew this from the beginning. The work you do is important, don't get me wrong. I think you always need to be producing a high quality of work, and you always need to be committed to, like, taking on as much work as possible so that you can expand your skill set and broaden your horizons and all that stuff. But what is also equally important, and I think this is probably something I missed more because of my cultural upbringing, if I'm being honest, but it's also equally important to just chat to people. Like, your social capital is also really, really important. And I kind of want to distinguish this from networking a little bit, because I think sometimes with networking, that's a bit more of a slow builder in terms of how you're building the relationship with someone. What I'm talking about with social capital here is the things like the going for lunches with your supervisor, the things like the reaching out to random partners and asking them for a coffee, the things like when you have a bit of downtime, like, i.e., if you know you can finish all of your billable work by 5 p.m, like, instead of just having an early night and resting, reach out to someone and have a chat with them and just connect. Ask people about their journeys into the law, ask people about what they did when they were training, like, all that sorts of thing. It is really, really important. And this is important because as a trainee, when it comes time for qualification, and also just generally when it comes round time for reviews and people are giving you reviews, you're gonna want people to say that they like you, because the way I've always kind of thought about it is that at the end of the day, this is an industry where sometimes we do work long hours, and you don't want to be working long hours with someone that you can't stand or someone that you can't get on with. So if you are someone who is able to have these conversations with people, you are able to build your social capital in that way, people are going to basically just like you. And if people like you, you're more likely to be hired there. People are more likely to want to give you work because they're going to enjoy working with you, because they know that they can just have a chat with you, like, all those sorts of things. So I'm basically saying this to say that, especially to my fellow Black people, to my fellow people of color, if you are someone who was raised on this ethos of we must work hard, like, we must always produce the best, 100%, blah, 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 I'm just here to remind you that in terms of grades, when we're thinking about it really and truly, 70% is a distinction. 70% is a first class. Whether you get 70% or whether you get 100%, you've got that first class. So the way I now try to view things, to just remind me to, like, also be putting time into my social capital building as well, is that so long as I'm producing a good work product, I don't need to spend all the time in the world perfecting that, if that makes sense. Like, it just needs to be good. It needs to be good to go out. I need to also be spending time talking to people, socializing, because that is actually how you get ahead. And especially if you're in the UK, your social capital is honestly your superpower. What's the final thing that I wish I knew before I started my TC? In all honesty, I personally wish that I had done a little bit more research into the different routes into law. I guess holistically, if I look back, I don't regret anything, because I think I would have ended up here regardless. But as most of you know, like, I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little girl. And when I was a little girl, obviously nobody in my family was in the law or anything like that. So my mum was kind of like, oh, well, go and research to see what it is that you need to do to become a lawyer, and then I'll basically help you do whatever it is you need to do to get there. So in my little, like 5-6-year-old head, when I went to do my little research in the library, because in those days, internet at home was scarce. It was either we unplugged the phone or we used the internet. So went to the library, did a little bit of research, heard about this thing called a training contract, heard that, apparently you need to do history and all these kind of things at GCSE, you need to do like history and English at A level, and then you need to go and study a law degree. So I had a very like traditional route into my TC, and it's because when I first did my research into what routes were available, that's the first thing I saw, and I kind of just ran with it. I think after having started my training contract, after having spoken to fellow trainees who, like, they did business degrees, they did history degrees, they did some of them have even done like things like physics, chemistry, like they've just done really cool stuff. There's people who have taken gap years, there's people who have literally traveled the world, and I love to travel. I've just seen that some people have really just enjoyed life a little bit more, and in all honesty, I do wish I had done that. I don't necessarily regret the law degree. I actually enjoyed it, and you know, maybe I'm one of the few people who say that, because I know a lot of people like hate the level of reading. They find a lot of like the modules boring, but I actually quite liked the law degree. But I also think I'm somebody that would have liked to maybe have done a business degree, or maybe I would have liked to have done a history degree. Like, I'm someone, I just like to learn different things, you know. So I think I maybe would have appreciated doing something different, and then getting into the law after, like maybe doing a GDL and then getting into law that way. Have a look at what the different routes are. Make sure you take some time to research, and don't pigeonhole yourself, especially if you are young. Don't pigeonhole yourself into doing one set route just because you think that's the only way, or that's the quickest way, or that's the best way to get into the law. I don't think there actually is a best way. I think at the end of the day, you just need to be happy and just do what works for you. So I wish that I had done that before I started my TC, but alas, here I am now. So those are the 5 things that I wish that I had known before I started my TC. Hopefully you find these things really helpful. If you like this kind of content, please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe. And as ever, give me a follow on my Instagram, and I'll be back again soon with another video.